So on today's episode, we are talking to Josiah Smelser.
He's going to love that. So we met Josiah at a real estate conference down in Las Vegas. When were we down there? I don't remember. October, I think.
October, yeah.
October 2023. And this was just one of those, happened to be in an Uber car at the same time, met him, really connected. And he's such a great educator and human being that we had to have him on and talk to you guys.
He's doing real estate specifically. He does not have a background in nursing, but a lot of what he's doing can speak to nurses in that he was working in a corporate job. He wasn't making crazy money, but he was making enough to start investing, and he started small and he was able to build a portfolio and then transition that into some short-term rentals.
He's passionate about starting as soon as starting right now, which is our entire message. So
yeah, it's going to be a good one. So if you're in the Smokies, check him out.
Oh yeah, he's got some pretty good stories. So yeah, stick around.
Oh, there's a rapper. Was that in this episode or was that like afterwards?
That was in this one.
Nice.
All right, welcome to the Investing RN show. Today we have Josiah Smelzer, host of the Daily Real Estate Investors Show. He's a fellow real estate investor, and we're just going to talk to him about his journey. Josiah, welcome. So you started your career in corporate America, am I right?
I did, yeah. And thanks for having me, guys. It was awesome hanging out with you guys at this WealthCon.
Oh, that's right. I was going to mention that too.
Yeah, I started off in corporate America. You know, one of the worst things I experienced was my first job out of college, which was working at an accounting firm, working at one of the big four accounting firms. I was working like 95 hours a week doing audit, which is like the worst fit for me and my personality. So I lasted about a year, and it's amazing I lasted that long because I was miserable the whole time. So after that, I left and I went and worked for a friend who had just left his boss, and he was starting an appraisal business. And we started that out of the back of his house, and I was happy to do literally anything besides what I had been doing. That got me into real estate. So I learned how to value real estate. And then after while I was getting that license and training under him, I also got my real estate license, and then bought my own primary residence and did a house hack and rented out to my friends. So they were covering my mortgage payment. And then all my monthly housing expenses were covered. So I was saving money, and I went and bought a flip, did my first flip at the same time. And this was before I had even heard of anything like Bigger Pockets. This was before that podcast was even around. This was back in like 2004, 2005. So I kind of did that until right before the 2008 thing happened. And then I sold all my real estate. Just crazy timing, crazy lucky timing. And I went and hiked the Appalachian Trail and paid off all my debt. I didn't have a house, didn't have any. And like the whole 2008 thing's going on, and I'm off hiking in the woods. Like, so it didn't really, I didn't have that. I wasn't scarred from that like everybody else. But yeah, that's kind of how I got started.
Did you get your real estate license to actually sell homes, or did you get it just because you were getting into investing and you wanted to be able to have access to the MLS and all that?
Yeah. So when I started doing appraisal work, I was inside people's houses all day long. A lot of them were just selling, and they were looking for their next house, or, it was a tenant that was, the property was being sold and the tenant had to move out, and they wanted to buy a home. So I got asked on a regular basis if I knew a real estate agent that could help them. And I was finally like, well, I'm just going to get my license so I can make money off this. So I got it to kind of supplement my income as an appraiser. I've had that ever since. And I've heard people give the advice before not to get your real estate license. And I think that's terrible advice, because I have made a really nice amount of income over the years just from doing deals that have just come to me, even without advertising and stuff. And then our portfolio now is in vacation rental cabins up in the Smokies. So I moved my broker license up there, and then I acted as an agent when we bought all those. And these are like multi-million-dollar vacation rental cabins. And so, on a $2 million deal, you're getting a check for $60,000. Well, that's a lot of money, and so even having your license for one deal like that is worth it. So it's been worthwhile having that, on top of the fact that I use the MLS for all my appraisal work as well. And I backed off appraisals doing appraisals as much now because my real estate business has grown a lot, and I'm doing my own podcast and social media stuff, and appraisal's not really my highest and best use of my time, but I still enjoy it. So I still do some of it on the side.
No, appraisal, you're talking about appraising like houses for other realtors?
Yeah.
That's the program you're in?
Yeah. So 99% of appraisals are for banks, mortgage companies that are making a loan. Like if you go to the bank and you get a loan, the bank has to get an appraiser to go out and figure out what the value of the house is. So they know that if you don't make your payments and they take that house back from you, that they can sell it and get their money back. So a lot of people think that it's for the borrower, but the appraisal is really not for the borrower. The appraisal is really for the lender. You're trying to protect the lender, right? The lender wants to know that the collateral they're getting is worth what they're lending on. So they want to be able to be made whole if they have to take it back and liquidate.
So you got you started working in this appraisal business before you started investing in real estate. Am I right? Do I have my timelines correct?
Yes, I did. Well, yes. I mean, I started working in appraisal a year after I bought my primary residence, which was a house hack. So if you consider that, I didn't really even know what I was doing then. I was just trying to cover my monthly bills with the money from the rent from my friends. So that was really technically my first real estate investment, but it wasn't an intentional necessarily real estate investment. I was more just trying to save money kind of thing. The flip after that was probably my, that could have, so one of those, it was right around the same time.
Yeah. And the house hack, I mean, even to this day, it's still the best and the very first strategy for new investors to get into. It's what I tell everybody. I'm sure you're telling everybody the same thing. But being a part of an appraisal business, I'm sure that kind of gave you a little bit of an edge when you started to invest in real estate. Because I mean, running comps is, I don't want to call it the most difficult thing, but it's potentially one of the most important things that you're doing when you start to invest. So how do you think that helped you set up your future in real estate investing?
Yeah, I mean, it was huge. That skill set. Somebody asked me the other day, would I recommend becoming an appraiser and what are the perks and what are the pros and cons, And I was telling them, I was like, you can make good money at it, but the most valuable part of being an appraiser is being able to find deals, because, I've used that license before. There was one deal that I found that I thought was a good deal, and I got it off market well below what I thought it was worth. And a year later I sold it and I made about $1 million on that one property. And that was all using that appraisal license and those valuation skills. If I didn't have that, I wouldn't have been very confident that the deal was as good as it looked, because it was, it had foundation problems, and it was an expired listing and all this. So a lot of people would have been scared off by it, but I recognized based on the data and really knowing the data well that I was pretty sure that was a great deal. So yeah, the valuation thing was really key to me getting into investing, and I think being successful at investing.
Yeah. And what did your first few investment properties look like? You said you flipped a couple. Were you mostly just buy and hold? Was it the traditional like mom and pop long game? I'll just like eventually they'll be paid off and I'll make some cash flow from it. Or did you know from the beginning that you thought this was going to be a strategy to exit your day to day?
Yeah. So the first one was the house hack that I talked about, and the second was the flip. And then I sold that stuff, went and hiked the Appalachian Trail. I went to grad school, got my MBA, and tried the corporate world thing again. That was, again, after years of doing that, just felt like I was a fish out of water. And then I got married. We paid all my wife's debt off. So we were living below our means. I was working at a bank or something at the time, and when we just didn't have much money. So I decided, at this time I was going to get back into real estate investing. So we did another house hack. We bought a duplex in Dallas and lived in one side, fixed the side up that we were living in. And then we had a tenant when we bought it, on the other side. And we did the minimum down on that. This is what's awesome about house hacking. Anybody who's trying to get started, you can do an FHA loan with 3.5% down for a house hack. And that's what we did. So this was a really nice duplex in Dallas. I would say it was an A-class neighborhood. And I looked at the numbers and I'm like, we're getting $1,600 from the other side, and our mortgage payment's only $2,300. So we're like, we're basically getting to live in a nice subdivision in Dallas for $700 a month. And this thing's going up in value rapidly, and they're paying the debt down and all that. So we put 3.5% down on that, and then a year or two later sold that, and that made us a good chunk of profit. And I think we put like 15 grand down on that deal, and we made like $100,000 or $150,000. So it's like that's a really great way to get into real estate investing, is do that house hack strategy for your first or your second deal, then take that equity, and then you can start going to doing the BRRRR strategy, which is what my business partner and I did with the next properties. And to answer your question, we did this. So my wife and I did this duplex, and then one of my good friends, he had a really good year in sales, and he had a chunk of money. I think it was $200,000. And he was like, "Hey, I want to get into real estate investing. I don't really know what I'm doing. You seem to know what you're doing with real estate, but I want to invest. Can you help me out?" And I was like, "Well, I actually don't have the cash, but I feel like with the valuation skills I have, I can spot deals, and I'm willing to put the sweat equity in to work for it and build it." So we made a deal. We partnered up, and my deal with him was, you put the money in, I'll do everything else. I'll find the deals. I'll run the rehabs. I'll manage the contractors. I'll manage the refinances. I'll do everything. And then I will not take a penny of profit out of this thing until you've got all your money back. He was cool with that. So literally the first 3 properties we got, we were doing the BRRRR strategy. This was like 2017 or 2018. The first 3 properties we got, he never saw them. They were out of state. They were in Arkansas, actually. I was teaching finance on the college level in Arkansas at the time. So he never saw these properties. He's living in Huntsville, Alabama. I'm in Arkansas. I found these properties in Little Rock. I bought these. I found these properties. He paid for them. We got them fixed up and refinanced. He got all of his money back, and we gained like $120,000 in equity. And he's never seen these things. And he was like, "Dude, this is insane. We got to do more of this." And so that's when we got the bug. It was like, this is working. And then we shifted our strategy because I was like, I like Little Rock for cash flow, but I don't think the appreciation rate here is going to be very good. And so we started looking for other markets. So we looked at Huntsville, Alabama, and it just wasn't much for sale there. And then we looked at Fort Worth, Texas, where I used to live. And I knew those markets really well because I used to do appraisal work in all those subdivisions all over Dallas, Fort Worth. And I was like, we can get the leads here from wholesalers to do the BRRRR strategy on this, and we can take our capital and get a bunch of properties. And so we built that portfolio up to about $5 million. I think we had 20 properties in there at one time before COVID happened. And when COVID happened, you couldn't give a property away. And then when they did all the stimulus, then you couldn't, it's like you had a property for sale, people were fighting over it. So it was like this manic swing in the markets. But we got together and we looked at our numbers. We're like, we've got $2 or $3 million in our portfolio in equity, but our cash on cash return's not really that high. So if we sold all these single families and we did 1031 exchanges into vacation rentals, I was doing the math and I was like, wow, that would take us from $50,000 a year profit on our portfolio to $600,000 a year. And so that's what we did. So in 2021, we sold everything, moved it all into vacation rental cabins in the Smokies. I had my broker license. So every time we bought one of these cabins, I was making another chunk of money. So it was there were some really good years in there, 2021, 2022. And we've still got all those vacation rentals and they're doing very well for us. And we hired a buddy of mine to manage it all. So that is like, that's as passive as it gets for me. It's not passive, but I'm not really involved in the day-to-day, and it's doing great, making great money for us. And my friend is managing it for us.
That's awesome. I have a couple of questions about the Airbnbs, but first I wanted to go back. When you said you started with this partner and he was putting up all the money and you were finding the deals and doing all the work. Did you guys form an LLC? And then when you guys were refinancing, was he the only one signing like as the personal guarantor, or was it both of you guys? How'd you guys work that out?
Yeah, that's a good question. I want to say when we started, I think when we started, I don't think we formed an LLC. I think we just put both of our names on the deed, and he was on the loan, because we learned this really fast. It's like, if you both are on the loan, then you can have less properties, right? Because if you put 10 under my name and 10 under your name, then we can do 20. If we put 10 under both of our names, we're stuck at 10. So we planned, because we wanted to have at least 20 of the highest quality properties we could have. We're like, okay, 10 under him first and then 10 under me next. And then we even at times where we got maxed out on that, we put 10 under his wife and 10 under my wife. And so, yeah. And our wives still talk about, they're like, if somebody will call them trying to buy their property and they're like, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't even know what this is. They have no clue. They don't even know what they own. Their name, like they own these things in public records, their name's on it. They don't have a clue anything about it. So it's hilarious. They've always said, like, when we travel, they want us to drive separate because if we both get killed in a car wreck together, they're going to be like, it's going to be like a disaster because they don't know what the heck they own, So we always laugh about that. But anyway, we eventually formed an LLC after we got several properties, but at first we didn't. But he was the guarantor because he had really strong financials and it was easy for him. Mine were fair. They weren't great. They weren't terrible, but he had a lot of liquidity and a lot of reserves and stuff. So he was easy to get us qualified. And then we formed the LLC thing later.
So I want to take you back a little bit. So you mentioned the first $1 million you ever made was kind of on accident when you were doing appraisals and you just happened to come across this deal. I mean, everybody says that your first million is the most difficult million to make, but then it sounds like after you made your first million, you went back to school to do your MBA and
yeah, no, it wasn't. I don't want to make it sound like it was easy. I went through a lot. I waded through a lot of crap to get to that deal. I did that deal about the same time that we were selling all the single families going into vacation rental cabins. So that deal was done in like 2020, 2021. So I started in appraisal in 2005. So I really spent, 15 years working in real estate and learning how to value real estate before I got that deal. You know what I mean? I wasn't investing that entire time, but I had been investing. If we started in 17 with my current thing, I had been working all day, every day on real estate investing for 3 straight years before I got that deal. And that was a really exceptional thing, but it's definitely not all been like that for me. We've lost money on flips. We've had flips that don't make us anything. They're just kind of break even. We've had rentals that struggle. It's a struggle, as you know. There's lots of failures along the way. That was just the thing that's happened that's gone the best.
Yeah, it's nice to hear all these. Everybody knows that not every deal goes good, but the only ones you hear of are the ones where you make $1 million and it sounds easy.
Yeah, it definitely was not. And even that deal when I bought it, it had expired. This is the crazy thing about this. This property had been sitting on the MLS for months and nobody would buy it. It wasn't like I just got lucky. It was like everybody else was scared to do this for whatever reason. I have no clue why, but when I looked at it, I was like, wow, this seems undervalued and it had expired. So I just reached out to the agent and I said, hey, would you still be willing to sell this for what you had it listed for? Well, they went back to their sellers and their sellers were like, well, hey, it's got a big foundation problem. This is like a cabin hanging off the side of a mountain. Okay. So, it's hard to fix foundation when something's hanging off the side of a mountain, And I said, okay, well, send me all the stuff you got on that. So they sent me all the paperwork. I looked at it. I was like, even if it costs $40,000 to fix this, I was like, I think there's hundreds of thousands of dollars of equity here. So I was like, I'm going to buy this thing. Well, this is even better than the $1 million. It's hard to believe. There could be something better, but I put $105,000 down on that property. And year one, that thing cash flow profit, net of all expenses and the mortgage payment and everything. That thing cash flowed $120,000. So it was like the cash on cash return was above 100%. And this is the crazy thing is like there were so many people that had an opportunity to buy this and nobody did, and it expired. So all that to say, like sometimes there's deals sitting right in front of your face if you'll just take the time to actually get on the MLS and look around, and think creatively, because I had to fix this foundation problem. So I got really, it was probably getting paid for being willing to tackle that,
Do you still have that property today?
No, I sold it. That's when I sold it. That's when I made that $1 million on it.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
you did say that.
Oh, nice. I think like that's kind of one of the things, when people talk about narrowing down your search criteria, I'm sure for a lot of people, foundation issues, it's like an automatic pass.
Yeah.
But I guess if you got the right tools and you got the ability to do that kind of thing, and like in your case, you were able to appraise or assess the deal and figure out like, hey, even with losing $50,000 on that, it's still worth it. So
yeah, and part of it too was there was some equity when I bought it because I think people were scared of the foundation thing, and also when I bought it, right? I bought it in 2020. Well, then values went crazy and I sold it in 2022. Well, so I also, I may have bought it with 500,000 in equity. And then from 2020 to 2022, the cabin values went insane as well. So there was that too. It wasn't just $1 million walking in the front, but it was a good deal going in. I fixed the foundation and the values went crazy. So it was a bit of good timing and that kind of thing too.
Did you have?
So you mentioned earlier.
Oh, I was just going to say for that. Did you have a crew lined up? Did you get an estimate on that before you made your offer, or did you just kind of know from your history what it would be?
No, I mean, we were talking about foundation problems. When I was in Texas, almost every house had foundation problems. So I was just all the properties of those 20 I was telling you about that we had in Fort Worth, every one of them we had to fix the foundation on when we bought it. So I just wasn't worried about foundation's one of those things you can fix. It just depends on how much it cost, right? I knew it could be fixed, and when I saw what it was, they sent me the foundation inspection. I knew, I was like, there's just enough meat on the bone and I'm not going to mess with this. Like, I'm going to jump on this thing while I can. And so I was more concerned about getting it closed and them not changing their mind than I was getting all that stuff lined up. And that's something else that I would say was key to us building this whole thing was, in 2017, 2018, 19, 20, it was not easy to get a good rehab property that you could do the BRRRR strategy on. People were saying in 2017 that, real estate was overpriced. So even though rates were a lot lower, it sounds comical right now, but yeah, I had so many people telling me, dude, it's already overpriced. You missed it. Like, you should have started 10 years ago, and I just didn't listen to them. But, I don't know. You just gotta kind of drown out the noise on that stuff when you feel like it's good. It is more challenging right now to find stuff because rates are high, and the wholesale deals I'm looking at just don't have hardly any meat on the bone. It's like a wholesaler sent one the other day. They wanted 200 for it, and they said the ARV was 225. I'm like, that's like closing cost. I mean, you couldn't do anything with that,
Yeah. On top of all the stuff you'd have to fix up.
Yeah,
or
exactly.
Was it pretty clean?
No, I mean, there's definitely stuff to fix. It's like, well, you'll be upside down in this, if you don't just buy it and do nothing. So
going back to your 20 single families that you had accumulated, you did the BRRRR strategy on all of those. And you mentioned that your mindset was because you realized that the cash flow was nowhere near where the equity was and you could turn it into Airbnbs. So talk about that process a little bit more detailed. Like what turned you on to that? Was it kind of a slow grind over like a couple of years where you saw the cash flow wasn't what you expected?
Yeah. We of course started off with those properties in Little Rock, and then we pivoted and knew we wanted to go into Fort Worth. So we sold 2 out of 3 of those properties in Little Rock, and then we put our capital to work in Fort Worth. And my strategy was get on wholesaler list, find my contractors and renovation team, and I'm just going to buy, deals that look like I can do the BRRRR strategy on. And I knew the areas I wanted to buy because of my appraisal experience out there. And so that's what we did. So I would spend my days looking at wholesale deals and making offers on stuff. And remember, I'm in Alabama and this is in Fort Worth, Texas. So I would get deals that I'm like, dude, the numbers work on this. And they're like, well, what do you want to do? We can try to send somebody out there, but it's going to take hours. And I would just look at it online. I'm like, I'd make them an offer right there, sight unseen. So I did that all the time. And it's like, what's the worst that could happen? I mean, the inside would have to be non-existent to make this not work, So we got some doozies. But the average property, they all kind of on average look the same because they're all just torn up, right? Most of these foreclosures, they need a lot. And it's like, you can kind of look at the pictures the wholesaler sends you and their repair estimate. And then you can get online and look at stuff. And if you don't have time, see, if I would wait and get somebody to go out there and look at these things, somebody else have already bought it. And that happened so many times where I wanted to take time to look at it and like the deal was gone in the blink of an eye. So we got to where, like, if we knew the numbers would work and it was like not an astronomical repair budget, we would just jump on it and it worked out. But yeah, that took, I would say that took 2 to 3 years. And the way we did that was we used hard money for the loans to buy them. And I met a private money investor who, this was crazy. I talked about this when I was on the Bigger Pockets podcast. I mentioned this because this is like so shocking to me. Like I was at the mastermind in Hawaii, Brandon Turner's mastermind in Hawaii, and they asked us what is the bottleneck in your business? I said, well, it's capital for me. I feel like I could do a lot more deals, but I'm running out of capital to do them. All my capital is locked up in my deals. And they said, well, have you looked at private investors? And I was like, not really. No, not really. I haven't. And they said, well, start talking to private investors and see what you can come up with. So literally the first person I talked to, the first private investor I talked to was like, I told him, I was like, hey, I'm looking for some money for some more real estate deals. And he was like, how much money do you need? And I said, I don't know. He said, what about $200,000? I was like, sure. So we used the private money, 200,000 with hard money. So we were buying these deals with none of our own capital. And then we used our money to service the payments on the private money and the hard money. And that's how we're able to do so many so fast. Because if you're using your money for the equity piece on all this, you quickly run out of money. And that's where you get in trouble in real estate, is not having enough reserves. So really, cash is king in real estate. You got to have enough reserves to be able to get through the project, see the projects to completion. And so when we found this private money, it just like opened everything up for us, even with all the interest. And so I always say, it doesn't really matter what the hard money lenders and private money lenders are charging you if your numbers work. And if you can conserve your cash and keep your cash for reserves for your projects and also to service the interest payments to both of these parties, it really is the best way you can go with it. It's riskier, right? It's not as risk averse. If you're really risk averse, you don't want to do that. But if you're trying to really grow fast, you got to get creative with how you do it.
Was that private money lender? Was that somebody you knew already, or how'd you get in touch with them?
That was just somebody I met at a networking event. Everyone knows people that would be private money lenders, but the way that you convince a private money lender that you're worth lending money to is just by showing them your track record. Like, this person was already familiar with me and felt comfortable with what I was doing. And so they were willing to do this. Like if you're a brand new investor and you've never done this stuff before, you're going to have to sell somebody on it, right? You might have a relative that'd still be willing to do it. But when it comes to like somebody that doesn't know you, they're going to want to see your track record, kind of like a lender at a bank would. But these guys are a little more flexible because, they don't have to go through all the bank underwriting stuff, but they just want to know they're going to get their money back. And so really them being familiar with you or what you're doing, that's why putting out content is so good. People can get to know you. You've got a lot of potential private money lenders listening to your podcast, getting familiar with you. And eventually they're going to feel comfortable enough with you that they would do that if you wanted them to, or if you needed the money, and you may not need it. But that's the good thing about letting people get to know you through things like social media.
Well, I think the first time we tried to get private money, it was from Josh's parents. And I think we offered them 15%, and they were kind of like, oh, we're not going to do it for 15%. Well,
that's good.
Well, and that was when we were starting off. We were new. So they're like, oh, that's not safe. So fast forward to a year or two later, we ended up doing a deal, and they lent us money at 10% because we had already done a few deals. So they were more confident that they were going to get it back. So yeah, definitely like developing your track record and some sort of notoriety helps.
I was going to ask about your timeline on these because, interest for hard money is very high. I assume your private money interest isn't low. So how fast are you having to turn these properties for you to even break even?
We just factored all that in. Our average rehab was taking, I would say, from the time we closed on it to rehab being finished to the refinance, or really it was the time we closed to the rehab being done. Because the second the rehab was finished, we were getting it rented, right? So, it was probably, the average rehab's probably taken a month and a half. Some going to 3 months, some going faster, some maybe a month if they're light. With the financing, getting, as once the rehab's done, then you go get the appraisal and they do the loan for the cash out refi. That takes another month. So it's like, if it took you a month and a half on the rehab, unless you're getting it earlier and doing a subject to completion appraisal on it, you're looking at like 2.5 months. So I would say on average, each deal, if it went well, probably took start to finish 3 months before we had it refinanced out.
Now you're doing the Airbnb full time, or are you still doing the flips?
I have not done any flips in the last year. I've been looking, but I haven't found anything yet to jump on. I'm a little more cautious with it right now too, just because it's harder to sell properties right now. I know that there's a shortage of housing, but stuff that's going up is also not selling as fast. So it's just kind of a weird time to be flipping houses, but I'm still open to it if I find the right deal. But yeah, the vacation rental thing is streamlined, and we hired one of my friends. He's managing that in-house for us now. So that's going, and I'm involved in that, but I'm definitely not doing that full time. And I have my brokerage. I'm still doing appraisal work. I'm creating content, doing my podcast. Just got on YouTube in the last 3 months, and that channel is The Daily Real Estate Investor. Love for anybody listening to go check that out. And then of course I'm on Instagram and all that. But I'm honestly looking at my next thing, and that's why I'm interested. I know you guys just signed up for this all-star program at WealthCon with Ryan Pineda and them. That's why I'm interested in that. Like, I'd really like to work on building some other businesses. Like, I like to build a flipping business. I'm considering wholesaling business, and then I've toyed with getting into commercial and doing some like apartments and that kind of thing.
I was talking to a guy this morning, actually, a little local coffee shop, and he has a I think it's an 8-bedroom house up in Idaho, way up north there. And he was saying that the property management company he's using is charging about 35%, and they're always like tacking on all these extra fees and all that kind of stuff. And he said in 2021 and 2022 he did really well, but in this last year it kind of slowed down where they're not making money on the properties, they're not losing too much. Have you seen a slowdown since 2021, 2022, or is it still going pretty well for you guys in the Smokies? And also, the manager that you're using, is he local to that area or is he remote as well?
Yeah, so I would tell the guy that if he's listening to this, I was like, get rid of those managers and manage it yourself because you'll make a lot more money. It requires some effort, but to be honest, I mean, with one property, if you've got it on Airbnb, VRBO, there's software you can use to help you manage those things. You can automate your response messages, all that. It literally takes probably an hour or two a week. So if you're giving up 35% of your gross revenue, you're bringing in $100K a year. There's 35 grand going out the door for something that you could do in an hour a week. So if your property's struggling, it might be something to consider. But yeah, our guy is here with me in my office, my home office here in Florence, Alabama. So he's managing all this remote. And then we have cleaners and maintenance guys up there that handle any kind of issue with that kind of stuff we have.
I mean, to me, 35% seems steep. I think I've heard of 20, but I mean, he's older guy and I think he can afford it and he just doesn't want the headache. So that's, I'm sure, why they're going with that. But it does sound like they're leaving a lot on the table there by going with somebody that expensive.
Well, even if they just switch property managers, I mean, there's big, well-known vacation rental management companies that'll do it for like 15%. So he could save a lot of money just doing that, and that's honestly probably the number one reason that people get out of vacation rentals is their management cost is too high and it just starts bleeding them on their cash flow. And then they sell it because, every month they're losing $500, $1,000, and then they just want to get rid of it. Whereas if they got the property management piece fixed, then they could really make a lot more money and honestly keep the property and give it time for it to appreciate and have the principal paid down.
So you've mentioned that you're kind of all in on the Airbnb and the Smokies, but I don't know if you've talked about the specific niche that you have. I know you told us in previous conversations that you're buying these really large houses that fit a lot of people. So talk about that a little bit. And I'm sure with that many people all in one house, you have some pretty fun experiences to talk about. So maybe tell us a little bit about that, and maybe what's your favorite story that's come from that.
Yeah, I didn't want to go into all the crazy crap that's happened up there, man. It's been, dude. We had a rapper stay in our place, and I don't even know what I can say about this. I mean, it was a comedy of errors and just nonsense. I mean, at one point, this dude is the police got called on this guy, and the dude, the police go over there, and they're like, they told us, they're like, we think it's this guy who we think is like a famous rapper, and I'm like, I'm like 99% sure it's him. And I get on I get on Instagram, and I find him posting pictures of him in our cabin, standing on our furniture, like doing all this crazy stuff. He's got stacks of cash in his hand, just trashing our place, and like I don't even want to say all the rest of the stuff that happened. It got way crazier than that, but I don't want to talk about it on here. But yeah, man, it was. I mean, we had that. We've let's see, what are some of the other easy, stuff I can actually talk about that's happened. I mean, yeah, we've had bears living under our front porch at our property. We've had bears tearing the crawl space door off of our properties, getting under the cabins. We had bears pulling somebody's stuff out of the back of their truck, and these people call us like terrified. Oh, there's bears like tearing into my luggage in the back of my truck, and we're like, "You have food in there?" Yeah. We're like, "Well, there's bears that live up here." Let's see, what are some of the other? I mean, honestly, like Airbnb it's a hospitality business, so you are dealing with the general public, and a percentage of the general public is going to complain about anything and everything that you do. So, like for instance, we just had our best property on Airbnb. This thing has gotten, I think, 40 5-star reviews out of 40 guests. Not one review has been under 5-star, which is really difficult on Airbnb. We just had somebody come on VRBO, come there, and they stayed the whole time. The only thing they said was, it looks like some of the trash needs to be picked up outside. Well, an animal had gotten into the garbage can. We sent somebody over and got it picked up. The only thing we heard from them the whole time we were there. They left and then sent us an email after the fact saying, it was like an email this long, and they were saying, we really just felt like this property could have been cleaner and all this other stuff. And we're like, well, we never heard from you the whole time you were there. Like, and some people just try to get money out of you after the stay is over. Well, they said basically, we want money back, or we're going to leave you a review. And so my business partner and I were talking about this, and like, I'm not really a fan of giving people money back after the trip is over if they didn't say anything the whole time they were there, because I feel like they're just basically stealing from you. And so you have this dilemma of getting a bad review because you don't give somebody their money back, or basically giving somebody their money back so they won't leave you a bad review. You feel like it's like extortion. You're being extorted, So I was like, we don't know what this person's going to do. I feel like they're going to leave a bad review, but I just don't feel like we owe them any money, and I don't feel like we could have done anything because they never let us know. So we didn't respond to this person. Well, they left us a 2-star review. So now we're stuck trying to fix that and figure that out. So that's the game you're playing up there, and that's really the Achilles heel of Airbnb and VRBO is the guests know that they have all the leverage in the world with their review on the host, and the host is like held hostage by this review process because you can do everything right, and they love your property and they get value out of it, and then at the end they can basically say, hey, I didn't like this and I want my money back, and if you don't do it, they're going to hit you with a 1-star review, and then it drags your review rating down online, and then people don't book as much, so it's hurting your pocketbook. So it's like you're trying to figure out how to like hold off the crazies, you know what I mean?
So you have large cabins. So like, what's a
Yeah.
typical size, maybe square foot what does it typically cost for somebody to book it?
Yeah. So our cabins, so we've got 7 fishing cabins on a lake in Alabama. So that I won't talk about those. We've got 6 cabins up in the Smokies. And these are, we've got a 12 bedroom, 2 11 bedrooms, and then I think, let's see, an 8, a 7, and a 4. So most of them are larger, and like the 12 bedroom holds 55 people, and it's got like it's got an arcade in it. It's got a movie theater. It's got 3 decks, 3 levels of decks, like looking out over this beautiful view, and like multiple hot tubs and pool table and all that stuff. So these are like really nice cabins, and the cool thing about these properties is, if you can fit 55 people on a property, that's like what, 8, 9 families that can fit in there and all split the bill, and so this is actually a cheaper way for families to vacation than going with just their family somewhere. Because, like our best property brought in June, in 1 month, I think it brought in $80,000 gross revenue. That's gross revenue. But, so you're thinking $20,000 a week in the peak season for that. So it's like, a family goes in there and they get this for a week. There's 55 people. They split that 20 grand and there's 10 families. It's like $2,000 a family, It's like for 5 people for a vacation with like a movie theater and all this other stuff, it's like a really nice property. Like that's not bad, So
now, do you find that size of property, does it book less, or do you still find it booking pretty often? And
no, the weird thing is they're different assets than the smaller ones. Like the smaller ones are more likely to book last second because like you could have one family that wants to book a 3-bedroom cabin, So that stuff books out closer to its vacancy day. Like if you've got no occupancy this week, those 3 bedrooms could book out this week. You know what I mean? But your 12 bedroom, if it's not booked this week and, it's like, it's probably not going to be booked this week. So the larger stuff books out a lot further in advance because that's like multiple families going on a family vacation, or like we've had basketball teams, church groups, business meetings, all that stuff. People have tried to rent them for weddings. So, I mean, it's any large group of people that need to go to something like that. And of course, this rapper rented one of these massive ones for his posse. And at one point, they were heating a oatmeal cream pie in the microwave. So,
sounds great.
Yeah.
So, what are some of the trends that you're seeing in the whole industry of Airbnb in general? Do you see bookings going way down this year as opposed to last few years?
Man, I mean, I guess it depends on where you're really looking at. I think Airbnb's okay. Airbnb, when I think of an Airbnb, I think of a house in the middle of a city. When I think of a vacation rental, I think of something like a cabin up in the mountains. So I think your average Airbnb, which is something like a house in Nashville, I think that stuff has a good chance of having more regulation put on it, which could encumber the cash flow. Whereas vacation destination places like these cabins in the Smokies, they have kind of a competitive advantage because right now the builders aren't really building that many more of them because the costs are so high and it's such a risky time. So the ones that are up there that are well positioned and well furnished and managed well, they're doing really well. I mean, ours are doing really well. We may be down like 2% from last year bookings, but we were expecting more considering what's going on. But the stuff that's getting oversaturated in some of these cities where there's just like everybody's throwing their house on Airbnb, I think that stuff is going to have trouble with occupancy going down some.
Do you see those kind of trends just in real estate in general? Like where do you kind of see the real estate market going in the next couple of years?
Oh, that's it. That's a great question. I was talking about this today. I think that residential real estate is not really, I'm talking about on average, like places where people are moving out of, like California. If there's like a mass exodus, yeah, that real estate's going to get hurt. But I tend to think like conservative states with like pro-business environments, like, Fort Worth, Texas, that market's going to be great. And there's just not enough housing because, I mean, the California folks are moving there, right? Or they're moving to Raleigh, North Carolina. I know that's not as conservative as Texas, but, there's these places where everybody's moving, like Huntsville, Alabama is another one. There's not enough housing up there right now. So like the housing market really cannot go down up there because there's just not enough houses. So when one goes up, there's still people fighting over it, even at the rates being higher. But I do think in some of the rougher areas that are struggling with like unemployment and, like governments messing with their businesses and stuff and having crazy rules and stuff, like that stuff's going to get hurt. But I think the major pain is going to be in commercial. So I see the commercial stuff really struggling some, especially office. That stuff's going to really get nailed. I think multifamily is going to have a correction. I mean, a lot of the commercial is going to have a correction, but I think office is going to get the worst of it But I think over the next 2 years, that's probably going to happen. But I just don't think residential is going to get really hurt, even though when I get on YouTube, I see all these headlines about how the housing market's about to crash. I don't see how that happens.
I just saw a video, speaking of like the commercial side of things. Somebody just posted this yesterday, I think, and it was showing all these. I don't know if you've ever been to San Francisco, but in the Union, I think it's the Union Square area. There's, like Saks Fifth Avenue, Nordstrom, all these high end design, and they're all shut down. And it's wild because I went to school out there, and I remember going to Union Square, and just like it was always amazing to me how many high end shops were in that one small area. And I don't know if it's the economy or if it's all the riots and everything that's been going on, but so many of them were shut down. It's wild to see because, yeah, who's going to come into those spaces? I mean, you can't. Normal shops can't afford that. So
I forgot you lived in California. I probably just stepped on your toes with that, didn't I?
hey, the more people leave, the better for me. So
well, I don't know. I mean, I'm very naive on all the markets in California. I'm more thinking of like the headline stuff I see, like San Francisco. I just don't know. I don't know where all these people are going, but like when I had the BRRRR interview, after that, I had California people contacting me nonstop wanting to buy properties in Huntsville. So I know they're looking for a cheaper cost of living, lower taxes. They sell their $1.5 million house in California, and then they go to Huntsville and they buy the same house for $500,000, and they got $1 million left over to go buy a bunch of rental properties or something. So
we're noticing that here in Green Bay, Wisconsin, a little bit. So we were just ranked the number one city to live in the U.S. Unfortunately, because now there's a bunch of people moving here for that reason alone.
Well, and Huntsville was ranked the number one place to live 2 years ago. So yeah, it's wild how that happens.
So we are going to move on to the last segment. So we call this the Final Four.
Sweet. Made the Final Four.
You did.
Awesome.
Let's see if you make it past.
Glad I made it to the Sweet 16.
All right. So this is a podcast specifically for nurses. So we'd like you to tell us what you think is a top financial resource that you found that nurses can benefit from, whether it's a book, podcast, newsletter, whatever it may be.
Top financial resource. I know this is very general, but I mean, you can literally learn anything you want to learn on YouTube. So if I'm giving advice to a nurse who is trying to build a real estate portfolio, I would get on YouTube and I would look up real estate investing topics, and I would watch everything you can, and I'd find, the top 20 real estate influencers on there, and I would subscribe to them, and I would just immerse yourself in as much content as you can, because they're going to cover everything and it's free. It's like you get to go to college, you get to have a specialized degree in real estate, and it's free. It's like this didn't exist back when I was going to college, because I don't even know if I would have gone to college. I mean, it's like it's so specific and valuable what you get there, because it's customized, right? You can really drill down and figure out what you want to research and stuff. There's so much information. It's great. So I would say, like, find a great podcast you love, read as many books as you can. I mean, there's specific books that I love. I love Stephen Pressfield. One of his incredible books is called The War of Art. It's about creating and going on a journey, and he talks about resistance. And whether you're in nursing or any other field, like when you start trying to build a real estate investment portfolio, you're going to experience a lot of resistance. And what that comes in the form of literally anything getting in your way from your goal, right? It's going to be personal doubt. It's going to be lack of funds. It's going to be lack of deals. It's going to be a spouse that doesn't support you. It's going to be your friends that don't support you. It's going to be doing a deal that loses your money. Anything you can think of, it's gonna come against you. But it's like that resistance has to be pushed through to get to the next level. And so that book's like, if you haven't read that book, get that book. It's called The War of Art. It's an incredible book. I've reread it, and I probably will read it again. But that's not a specific real estate investing book, but it's so applicable to anything you're doing that's like thinking outside the box kind of thing.
Yeah, that's a great top financial resource. I mean, YouTube. I don't talk about it a whole lot, but like, I went to anesthesia school, and I rarely opened a textbook. Like most of my information came from YouTube. So it doesn't matter what you're looking for, you can find it there, and it's very detailed, very specific, and like you said, probably the best resource that you can have.
They say you're the combination of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So I've taken that, and I try to spend hours a day with the top 5 entrepreneurs that I've found. And so I feel like I'm getting to basically be their intern for free. These people don't know me, but I know them very well, and I know how they do things. And I feel like that alone, you can learn so much. And if you can learn everything they have and apply it, man, you're going to be light years ahead of 99% of people who are just out there not doing anything, you know?
Yeah, that's good advice right there. So the next thing's going to be, what would you, so again, for nurses specifically, when you come in, we call you new grad. Since you weren't that route, what would you say to like Josiah coming out of college? Like, would you change anything? What advice would you give yourself?
I would say take more risk sooner in your life. Like Josiah coming out of college could have started real estate then, like investing and built a portfolio. I mean, what we've built now, we have about 17 million in real estate properties right now. And we did that in about 5 years. I'm 42 years old. So if I had started when I was 20, I mean, and kept going and kept the momentum and kept building, I mean, there's no telling where it would be right now, So I would say to somebody coming out of school, your W-2 job is a tool for you to build an investment portfolio and buy assets. Don't forget that your W-2 job is not going to save you. It's not, you could be fired. You could get sick and not be able to go to work. Like, you need to think about the fact that, this income resource may not be consistent in your life, and plan for a rainy day. So live below your means. It's really tempting when you get out of college to start buying stuff when you get that job, right? Buy a new car, go buy a house you can't afford. You're trying to keep up with all your friends who've done the same thing, and everybody's broke, right? But really, I think really like the secret sauce is like live way below your means. Like, don't be embarrassed to drive an old car, to rent something that's not the best, or buy a house way below your means. And then like save everything you can, like cook, eat at home a lot, like just literally live below your means for 5 years, 10 years, and invest every penny you can. And then turn that capital over and over by doing something like the BRRRR strategy. And then you'll have millions in real estate. And then you can go get the car, then you can get the house, and you won't even notice the money being gone. So it's really like delayed gratification. That's probably, if I could just say 2 words to somebody graduating from college, delayed gratification. Like, just wait to get those nice things, because you can get them, but get them when it's not going to wreck you financially.
Yeah. So you said save a lot. I assume what you meant was save so you can invest.
Yes, save so you can invest. Of course, don't just save money. I mean, that's going to just go down in value, like inflation and stuff. But yeah, save so you can invest, of course. And I this conference I thought was really funny. Ryan Pineda said this. He like, real estate investors are broke, man. They don't have cash. It's like so true. Like, you have a net worth that's up there, and you have all these properties you own, but it's like the second I get like a big chunk of money, I don't want to sit in the bank. I want to go put it to work. You know what I mean? So it's like, I think people have this misconception that real estate investors are sitting on like $1 million in cash or something. Most real estate investors aren't. They got it in properties,
I would say most recently is when I feel like I've had the least amount of money to actually spend, and that's after we've acquired about $3 million of real estate. Now I feel like I have nothing because I want to put it all more in more real estate.
But yeah, the benefits of the real estate, you get the depreciation, which can save you on your taxes, which now you got more money to put into more real estate, or to buy things you need for your family. I mean, there are medical professionals out there that, like, and you guys know this, but there are medical professionals that literally invest in real estate just to get the tax breaks, right? And if you literally just saved all the money you pay in taxes every year and invested in real estate, you'd be multimillionaire,
Mm-hmm. Yep. I know plenty of them for sure.
Yeah.
All right. So number 3 on the final 4 is, what is your big goal for the next 12 months, and how can we help you get there?
Oh, big goal. I'm just trying to do more content. Like, I love creating content. So, I mean, you guys signed up for this all-star program. I think y'all are going to be in there building your business. I'm planning to sign up for it as well. So we can just help each other build our businesses. And, I'm loving what you guys are doing online. I'm happy to support you there. Supporting me would be great if you're willing to.
Of course.
So just stuff like that. I mean, literally, honestly, just having friends moving in the same direction is probably the best way to support,
All right. Well, wrapping up here with the last question, and I think you kind of answered it in the first, with the first question, but the emphasis that we're trying to focus on is, as the Investing RN podcast, aside from being nurses, is RN for right now. So just like one actionable step that somebody can take today to set them up for the future.
Yeah. If you're a new investor and let's say you've got that job, but you don't own any real estate, I would say after this podcast, when you get home, get on YouTube and find 5 real estate shows, 10 real estate shows you like, and watch an episode of each one of them. And you just immerse yourself in the content and the knowledge. And you can listen to podcasts while you're driving. You can, I love watching YouTube because it puts visual with the audio. And there's also, some of these guys got, they're showing their properties, their renos, all this other stuff. But I would just say immerse yourself in content around this and it'll motivate you. It's easy to get off on your own and be on your own island. And then that's when you lose motivation and you don't make any progress. So just surround yourself with people moving in the same direction.
Last thing, I know you kind of already said it on here, but where can people find you? Like, here's your chance to plug all of your businesses and all your handles.
Yeah, I'm on Instagram at Daily Real Estate Investor. That's where I'm the most active. And then YouTube, the channel's called The Daily Real Estate Investor. So go follow that, check that out. And I'm on LinkedIn, Josiah Smelser on LinkedIn. Oh, I've also got a book. I wrote a book called Dream It and Build It.
Oh, wow.
How to Crush Your Real Estate Investing Goals. And it's on Amazon.
How is this the first time we've heard of this?
Man, I can't play all my cards, up front.
Well, we'll have to drop a link to all that so that people can find all that for you. Yeah. Well, hey, thanks for talking with us today. This has been great, and look forward to seeing you again at the next WealthCon and keeping in touch.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. Look forward to seeing what you guys do with your show and with all your investment goals and stuff.
Yeah. Thank you.
See you later.